told me if I had waited another 30 minutes at the house, I would have died in our bathroom. My oxygen was at 30%. If you're below 92, they freak out. I was at 30.
You're in there for a few hours, you go home, they give you a prescription.
Yeah, and that's kind of what Riley was thinking. They were also trying to draw blood. Well, I had no oxygen going to my brain. They were just fishing for veins, and they couldn't get a single drop of blood. All the hospital ICUs were pretty full around here. Then they're like, all right, we're gonna life flight her. So they get me on the gurney, and I'm like strapped down. And that's all I was thinking about. I was like, I'm about to go on a hospital. Somebody take a picture of me now. Somebody take a video of me as I'm leaving. I don't know if she's gonna make it. And I was starting to freak out a little bit because we didn't know how serious it was.
All right. So we were talking last month when Riley was on, and you kind of went into this experience that you went in, you had this health scare and right around the holidays. So I just want to kind of go back there just before Christmas, if I remember correctly.
I had the flu Christmas break.
Okay.
So I was off of teaching. I was on Christmas break, had the flu, and that's kind of what started everything.
But it wasn't just the flu.
No. So it started as the flu.
Like a regular flu, like aches?
Yeah, I had flu A.
Okay.
Yeah, so I had the cough. I wasn't throwing up, thank goodness. But the whole 9 yards, the aches, the fevers, the sore face, sinus infection, all of the jazz. Riley's whole family was sick over Christmas break as well with the flu as well. But I was about day 5 of Tamiflu, because they give you Tamiflu for the flu. And Riley, his dad, and I went down to Denver for a comedy show, and I felt pretty good considering. We had dinner, everything was fine, ended up getting home late. Riley got invited to go out with some friends, and I decided I was not feeling up for it, so I stayed home. By the time he got home, probably 2 or 3 in the morning, I was laying on the floor, could not even fathom trying to sleep on the bed. I just was aching. I couldn't sleep, couldn't get comfortable. My entire back was just in so much pain. And I've never experienced that. So I thought maybe it's just because of the flu, maybe go to the chiropractor or something. I don't know. But didn't think too much about it until he got home and thought we were in a fight because I was sleeping on the floor.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and he showed up and he was like, did I do something wrong? And I was like, no, why? He's like, why are you on the floor? Because I was using the pillows to try and prop me up.
So what kind of, does it feel like you just threw out your back, or what's the feeling like?
I can't even explain it. So when Riley got home, I ended up waking him up. He slept for maybe an hour. Woke him up because I was in so much pain. And I asked him, I was like, can you rub my back or something? Like, I can't get comfortable. Like, it's almost like a shooting but achy pain at the same. I don't know. It's so weird. And so as soon as he put his hand on my back, I burst into tears. I was like, no, don't touch me. Like, I need your help, but I don't know how to have you help me.
Oh.
So I was crying, and he was like, well, I don't know what to do. Like, do you want to go to the hospital? And I grew up in a family that, like, I don't know, for me, like, the hospital is like emergency.
The last resort. Let's try everything first.
So in my head, I was like, the bills, like, I can't go to the hospital. And so I was like, no, it's fine. Like an insane person, I went to the bathroom floor and laid on the tiles, thinking that the cold might help me feel a little bit better. And he thought I was crazy for doing it. And he kind of just, like, was sitting there with me, and he's like, well, what do you want me to do? Like, let's go to the hospital if you aren't feeling good. And again, I was just like, no, I can't do that. And so then he was like, okay, well, I'm going to go lay down, and you just let me know if you need me. And I was like, okay. So then I start coughing. Like, I was having coughing fits all night. I start coughing up blood. And that's when I knew something was really serious, because you see in movies, like, when you cough up blood, like, you're dying. Yeah. Like, it's the road to the end.
That's a red flag.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, crap. Like,
so what's Riley doing? Is he, like, in the background freaking out, or is he like, oh, I'm just going to go back to sleep?
He was more so, well, we didn't know how severe it was. And so I've never had the flu. I've never had pneumonia. I've never known anyone to have pneumonia. And so I didn't know any signs. I wasn't feeling out of breath that I remember. So yeah,
But you didn't have any chest pain or anything like that.
Not
When
that
I think pneumonia, I think lungs.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So I'm like, as long as I could take a deep breath, I'm not. Okay.
Exactly. So that I remember, no. However, talking back with my sister, who I ended up calling when I started coughing up the blood, because she's an occupational therapist, she was like, "What are you doing? Like, go to the hospital." But later on, talking back with her, she was like, "You told me you were out of breath. You were gasping for air. I don't remember any of it."
Oh, okay.
So by the time I hung up with my sister, and the time Riley was able to get dressed, I had lost complete vision.
What does that feel like?
I just felt
have
exhausted.
Your eyes open, you can't see.
Yeah, I just felt exhausted. So Riley had gotten dressed. I was able to get myself from the bathroom to our hallway upstairs, and by that time, I just sat down on the floor. And Riley's like, "What are you doing? Let's go." And I was like, I can't. And I thought
physically you cannot move anymore.
Yeah. And I thought I was saying I can't see, but I guess I was just getting out I can't. And so Riley, not knowing what's going on, he's like, "Let's go. Like, we need to get going. There's a lot going, a lot of urgency, and you're not having any." And I remember putting my hands on the ground, and I was rocking, and I was like, "Okay, 1, 2, 3," and almost I was gonna push myself up to get up, and I couldn't. So I was just sitting there. And so as I did it a couple of times, and he finally was like, "All right, I'm just gonna pick you up." He had to carry me all the way down the stairs, put me on the bottom step to go get the car already. I now don't remember any of this. He ended up putting me in the car. I guess he handed me a water bottle to have me hold onto my knee. And so then if I passed out and I dropped it, he would know. I don't have any recollection of that. I just remember we got on to Highway 52, and I opened my eyes for 2 seconds, and I felt like we were going so fast. But then
he probably was. Yeah.
but then that next
he's
thing,
freaking out. He's probably trying to talk to you.
Yeah.
You're not even talking back.
I don't know.
Maybe losing consciousness.
For sure.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So I guess I never dropped the water bottle, which is good. But next thing I know is we're at the ER, and I end up coughing up more blood there, just on the sidewalk. And then as soon as we get there, they're wanting to know my insurance and where do we bill, and I'm huddled over, and I can't breathe. I'm in so much pain. So Riley's trying to go through all my stuff, and all they care about is all of the medical billing stuff.
Right.
And so they finally get me a wheelchair. And this guy is like, "I need you to stand up and get this." And I get into it. And I was like, in not the nicest way possible, I said, "I cannot." I was just in too much pain. I was saying some very choice words.
Yes.
Yeah. So then he ended up picking me up, which then led to me having some more choice words.
So when he picked you up, at the house, do you remember feeling any pain?
Yeah. Every step, I just remember being like, "Oh, ow."
I
don't know if I was saying anything, but it hurt.
It hurt?
Yeah.
Yikes.
And so then they got me back to a room. My oxygen was at 30%, which...
And what's 30%? Yeah,
30%, which if you're below 92, they freak out.
Okay.
Below 80 is pretty bad. I was at 30. So they told me if I had waited another 30 minutes at the house, I would have died in our bathroom. So
so it's serious,
it was very serious. Yeah. And I laugh about it, but it wasn't funny.
Right. So what did they do next?
They had put me on oxygen through my nose and my mask, a facial mask with the nose, because they were just trying to pump in as much oxygen as possible. At that time, they were also trying to draw blood. Well, I had no oxygen going to my brain, so all the oxygen going to my limbs was not working. So they were just fishing for veins, and they couldn't get a single drop of blood. It took a good 30 minutes or so. They tried a couple different places.
So were you white at this time? No color?
I don't know.
We'll
No
have
one
to
has,
ask Riley.
yeah, no one said
Who's sitting
anything.
in this room, but we can't ask.
Yeah.
So.
Fun fact.
Fun fact.
I don't know. No one has said anything about my color, but they said I was talking delirious. Like I was what you call seesaw breathing. So you're using all the neck muscles and all of your stomach muscles, and they're basically seesawing as you're trying to breathe. So using all of your strength to get as much oxygen in as possible because I was in respiratory failure. So I was completely talking gibberish. I wasn't making any sense, which in my head, I thought I was making perfect sense.
Sure.
Riley jokes, he says that I was so dramatic during it all because they would ask on the scale of 1 to 10, how are you feeling? And I threw my hands up and I was like, I'm an 11. And then I was like, that's dramatic. Maybe I'm a 10. Or they were like, how are you feeling? And I was like, I'm dying. And they're like, what symptoms are you feeling? All of them. So I was being super dramatic. Yeah. But in the moment, really, I was feeling all of those things.
Totally telling the truth.
Yeah, it was just how it was coming out was
that's funny.
A little bit, a lot. But yeah, I remember they took me to get a CT scan and an x-ray, and I was kind of blacking out.
So this is all in like the emergency room?
This is all just in the emergency room. So we're still in Frederick.
Okay.
They get an x-ray, CT scan. They find out it's pneumonia, and my lungs are starting to fill up fast. So pneumonia moves pretty fast. So from the time that we were in Denver at that comedy show to going home, I had caught pneumonia. I guess maybe not be the word, but so it moves really fast. So I had probably gotten pneumonia within a couple of hours.
So pneumonia is just like, what is it? Is it like fluid? Is it
fluid building up in your lungs?
Okay.
So from my sickness, from the flu, it had basically, and I'm not a doctor or anything, but to my knowledge, the flu kind of got into my lungs and started building up liquid.
Okay.
I think that's how that works.
We'll go with that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
sounds good. Yeah.
But yeah, so I was starting to fill up on my right side of my lungs, and through my x-ray, my whole right side is pretty white, where in an x-ray it's supposed to be black. So they ended up deciding that I couldn't so all of the hospital ICUs were pretty full around here.
Because that was going around at that time.
Yeah, the flu took everyone out this year. Which if you don't get your vaccination, get your vaccination. That's what got me here. I did not
so you're not vaccinated?
I did not get my flu vaccination.
Oh, flu vaccination. Yeah. Okay, got it.
I'm vaccinated. I just haven't been getting my flu vaccination.
I see.
And people who are not getting the flu vaccination are the ones that are in the hospital right now.
I see.
So, yeah. But so they decided the closest ICU rooms available were all the way in Lakewood at St. Anthony's Hospital, Central.
So that's like a good 20 miles away?
Yeah, it's a good 40-minute drive.
Yeah.
So they decided I probably wouldn't make it for an ambulance. So I got life flighted all the way to Lakewood.
Make it as in life-saving?
Like I would have
died. You're going to die?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So this is super serious.
Yeah,
This is not like your normal ER where like you're in there for a few hours, you go home, they give you prescription. And,
and that's kind of what Riley was thinking. Like, we didn't know how serious it was. And knowing me, I am dramatic a lot. And so he was like, oh, we'll just go to the ER, get some medicine, we'll go home. Well, then they're like, all right, we're going to life flight her. And he was like, oh, okay. And me being dramatic, I was like, take a video of me on my first helicopter ride. I literally remember saying that. And my dad was like, that's not what you're worried about right now, is it? And I was like, I'm about to take a helicopter ride. Take a video of me. Yeah. And so I had these badass women come in. My Life for Light nurses were two maybe 30-year-olds. And they were awesome. They were super sweet. Like, totally were taking care of me. Ended up putting on some mask, like an oxygen mask that breathed for me, almost like a ventilation, but without the tube. So it was a little weird.
So were you feeling better at the time?
No. Oh, I felt terrible.
Okay, but you still have enough energy to say,
yeah. Well, take priorities. A video of
this helicopter ride.
Priorities, yeah.
All right.
So they get me on the gurney, and I'm like strapped down, and that's all I was thinking about. I was like, I'm about to go on a helicopter. Somebody take a picture of me now. Somebody take a video of me as I'm leaving. Like, have your priorities straight. If I'm spending,
Riley do it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So
if I'm spending all this money, I want video evidence. So they get me into the helicopter, and I thought I was going to be able to see out. No, I'm strapped down to a bed. I'm staring up at the ceiling. They have a window up at the ceiling, but I see blue.
Yeah.
Whereas I can tell that it's sunrise because like right over my cheeks I could see orange. But I was so tired and so like everything was going on.
It's not like a joyride.
I know.
You're in there for a reason.
Yeah,
and,
but it's a little sad.
So did you have any kind of like freak out mode? Like, oh
no,
my gosh, I'm in a helicopter. They have to use this to get me to a hospital in a hurry because I am in a serious case.
No, I was so exhausted.
You just didn't even care.
I didn't even care. I mean, when we first got up on the helicopter, it's not as smooth as a plane. It just kind of like jumps up and like you kind of move a little bit.
Oh.
And in my head, I did have a split second of, I hope we don't crash because I'm strapped to a bed and
Right. Like you can't
can't catch myself. But it was like a 2-second thing, but I kept blacking out. So it's not like I really remember.
Are you scared of helicopters? Are you scared of flying?
No. I'm scared of heights.
Scared of heights?
But I'm not scared of flying or anything like that.
So
but I
like
think
the
that's
Kobe thing wasn't going through your head?
No.
Okay. That's just me, I guess.
Me dying wasn't even going through my head.
True.
Like
Yeah.
I was more upset that I couldn't see the sunrise.
Okay.
But yeah, so I got to St. Anthony's, which it's supposed to be a 15-minute helicopter ride, and I remember maybe 2 minutes of it. But as soon as I got there, they had put me into whatever kind of triage room that you get put into, I guess. And you know, nurses are better than doctors, but doctors don't have any bedside manners.
It's you're either gonna do this or not.
Yeah, and so they were all coming up to me, and St. Anthony's is a teaching hospital, and so I had everyone and their mother there, yes, and I'm strapped down to the bed because they're still trying to get new blood, and they're looking at all my stats and my oxygen, and out loud, like a foot away from me, they're saying, "This does not look good. I don't like these numbers, and I don't know about this, and I don't know if she's gonna make it." And I was starting to freak out a little bit because
so you can hear them, so you have enough.
Yeah, okay. Because like they hadn't given me any sedation, and I was there alone because my dad and Riley, everyone was still on their way.
Oh, they didn't get to ride in the helicopter.
No, because it's very small. The helicopter, it's whoever's flying it, and then there's space for the bed, and then the 2 seats for the 2 flight nurses are behind the bed. And
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's very small amount. Oh yeah, there's a picture.
Was it orange?
It is orange, yeah.
It is orange.
Orange and yellow.
Hey.
It looks just like that.
There's Katherine.
Yep. There's me waving. What I can't see.
Right out there.
Yeah.
Just below. Yeah.
So
oh, that's scary.
Yeah, they look just like that. They're wearing like little jumpsuits.
Oh my goodness.
They look pretty badass, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's kind of cool when you look at it like when we're
like now that it's not life-threatening, it's like very cool.
So you're waiting for Riley, your dad. You're there by yourself.
I'm there by myself.
You've got a team of med school students around you.
Yep.
And
there was a good like 15, 20 people in the room.
And they're saying this doesn't look good.
Yeah. And one of the doctors had come up and was like, "Hey, I'm so-and-so. This is what I think it is," which I don't remember. And he goes, "Obviously you could die." Huh? I'm sorry. What?
Yeah.
Like
probably some more choice words.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I was like, okay. And as soon he was like, "We're gonna need to intubate you." And I don't know about you, but I've watched Grey's Anatomy, and like that looks scary.
Yeah.
And so
like they're putting you to sleep on purpose.
Yeah. Like, what if you don't wake up? It's terrifying. And so I immediately start having a panic attack. So like my numbers start raising. They're like, "You need to calm down." As soon as I look up, my dad's there, and he's like, "Ride out the high. Like, I'm here. I'm like, I heard what they said. Ride out this high. You're gonna get really high. Just enjoy it, and then it'll be fine." So they put me down, intubated me, and I was put into the ICU. And from there, I was intubated for 10 days, in the ICU for 10 days.
Did they tell you why? So what does intubating you do?
They didn't specifically tell me. My dad kind of like gave me his reasons. But I think it's basically just because I was so sick and my lungs were doing so much work with how much liquid was in them that they wanted to put me to sleep so that my body could just rest. Because if I'm awake and I'm trying to fight everything, then it's not going to heal as soon.
Sure.
Like when you're a kid, like sleeping makes you feel better, makes you grow, things like that. So I think it was basically just to make my body take everything in and heal as fast as possible. But so for 10 days, it's kind of off and on. I only say it's off and on because I have red in my hair, and anyone that has red in their hair fights sedation. So I was actually on the max sedation levels that they could give me for my height and weight, and I was waking up every day, multiple times a day.
Oh, and that's not supposed to happen.
That's not supposed to happen.
You're supposed to just stay down until they tell you you can.
Yep. So
every day you're like.
Every day. So I have little snippets of every day. But other than that, it's black. And
what about at night? I mean, could you tell it was day or night? It probably not.
No, I wasn't really concerned about that because I was so drugged. Like they had me on anything, everything you could think of. Because there's a tube down my throat. I actually had 3 different tubes down my throat. Because I had a feeding tube, I had my breathing tube, and then I had some kind of suction tube.
I didn't even think about. I thought you were just laying there asleep for some reason. So you have tubes down you?
I have tubes down my throat. I had all kinds. I had like 2 or 3 IV lines going because I've kind of gone on this whole ICU medical rant since getting out of here.
Interesting.
And so in the ICU, it's like mandatory you have at least 2 IV lines. I don't know why, but so I had a couple different IV lines. I actually ended up having on my neck, I have a scar. It kind of looks like an outlet plug. Because I have it's called a central line. And Riley was actually the one that okayed this. He was the only one at the hospital at the time. And it's basically just another IV line, but it goes through your carotid artery down into your body and then like your heart and all that. But so the big scar is the actual wire tubing that went through my neck. And the 2 little ones are where they sewed it into my neck. So I woke up, there's a big old patch on my neck to cover it. I had the wires from all over, my EKG wires. I had the tubes, and they tape it to your face, the tube, so that they don't.
Okay,
but then
let me picture this. So you're laying there, you wake up, and do you see the tubes?
Yeah, I mean,
you
not
kind of
coming.
see a little bit, or is it more like oxygen mask?
No, so it will come. So there's 2 round circles on your cheeks, and it kind of connects to the tubes. So you can't see it coming out of your mouth, but they're big tubes, and then it comes out to the side. And I don't know if that's where it connects to the machine or what, but so you can see there's a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, like when you're intubated, they also strap you to the bed.
So you can't like rip them out.
So you can't rip it out. Yeah. But there were times that they would take down my intubation levels and see if I can breathe on my own. And they would then have to kind of like wake me up a little bit to see if I would basically survive without the tubes. And I would like try and rip them out, things like that. So that's why they have you strapped. But yeah, luckily I don't remember any of those because from the stories, they sound a little traumatic.
I would imagine. I'm stressed just like trying to picture it.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot. My dad thinks subconsciously I knew when people were there because those times I would wake up, even if I didn't have my eyes open, I would reach out for their hand and either hold their hand or like put it on my head and make them like rub my head basically.
Really?
Because then I would know they were there.
Oh.
So and I guess it like he thought it would kind of calm me down.
Did you have any dreams?
Oh my God. Yes.
I want to hear about
scary
those.
Dreams.
Like, what do you mean
like
scary?
Demonic. Like, and I've noticed it's a thing. Like on my rant pages of looking things up on like TikTok and the internet, which the internet's never wrong.
Right, yeah.
I have noticed I don't know if it's because of the drugs, because I was on like fentanyl and morphine and all kinds of things. So I don't know if it was the drugs or if it's just how traumatic everything is. But I was having mostly the dreams I remember are like scary demonic dreams. Like I would shoot
like
up.
Like a horror film?
Yeah. Almost like, but not like a ghost horror film, like a demon horror film. Like I remember, I can't even explain what it looked like, but I remember one of the dreams, it was like a black blob facial structure in my face. And I remember like shooting up awake, and it was one of the times I woke up and there was someone there and I grabbed their hand. So it was like, they weren't all like that, but the dreams that I do remember when I was asleep are scary. But I did.
Did you tell Riley about him? Like,
yeah,
you're like,
I did. And I told everyone, I was like, like, I would have scary dreams. And they're like, oh, like, that doesn't sound fun. Like, because then I wake up and I'm strapped to a bed.
Right.
So it was definitely a bit traumatic.
Was it like a near death kind of
the dreams?
Did
No,
you have any of those?
Had
like
nothing.
I saw a light or
no.
But it was more scary.
It was just
like
scary.
Dark dreams.
Yeah. And like I couldn't, everyone always asked, like, could you hear people? I couldn't hear conversations. I didn't know people were there, even though my dad thinks I did know. When they would start to lower the sedation, I could hear a little bit more. Like I remember listening to a lot of music. My stepmom would come and put music on my phone. And so even now I'll be walking the dog and I'll put music on my phone and a song will come up and I'm like, oh, I think I listened to that one in the hospital.
Oh, wow.
So yeah. Okay. So like even though
There's
I wasn't
a connection there.
Yeah. So even though I wasn't like fully awake, I was awake enough to hear stuff a little bit. But as I started to wake up and they started to take out all the tubes and everything like that, the dreams became daydreams and I was imagining things. My nurses probably thought I was crazy because I would have full-blown conversations and then I would snap out of it and I was all alone. Like there was one night, I was still in the ICU room before they had taken me to a normal room. And there was a big blue, almost like a light at the dentist, where they have the handle and they can move it. There was one right above my bed. And it was middle of the night, and I was convinced that there were 3 boys in the...
males?
Yes.
Okay.
3 boys.
Okay. Specifically males?
Yes.
Okay.
Specifically teenage males who were Riley's students.
Oh.
So for those listening, Riley is a welding instructor for high school students. And I was...
And 3
of his students...
to ditch and go into this light.
No. I'm going to sound crazy. They worked for the...
Oh, gosh.
They worked for the hospital for the camera system. Okay.
Right.
And this is a dream. And I could see their faces clear as day. And I remember like putting my head up because I'm no longer strapped, right? And I'm pushing my body up to get closer to this light. And I'm like squinting and they start talking to me. Like all 3 of these boys. And they're like, we know you. And I was like, is there someone in here? Like, so do I press the call button? What's going on? So I start talking back to the light and I'm like, what do you mean you know me? Who are you? And they're like, we're Riley's students. Like, you're Mr. Dufour's girlfriend. And I was like, oh my God. Like, I'm in the ICU room. You know, in the hospital, you just wear the gown and I'm still drugged. I'm like, what have they seen? I was so worried. And so I was so nervous. And I was like, oh, well, like,
I can't do anything
about it. I'm stuck here. Yep. And so I'm just like casually talking with these 3 high school boys and they end up projecting stuff on the wall from their phone and like, hey, like this is my Instagram. Like I follow Mr. Dufour, like blah, blah, blah. Like here you are. See, I told you I know you. And I'm like
totally validating.
Yeah. So it was so real. I wake up, I text Riley. I'm like, you're never going to believe this. And he's like, what camera? There's no camera. So I take a picture of like me. I had a picture from like when I was still intubated, the very first day, like the day they were taking it out. I was not drugged as much, so I was very much with it. So I was taking, you gotta take selfies. You gotta remember what you look like.
Absolutely.
So there in one of the pictures was the light. And I sent it to him and I was like, it's this camera. And he's like, babe, that's a light. And I was like, no, it is a camera and your 3 students work in it. And he's like, what is going on? No.
Is this so like you know exactly what they look like?
Yeah, I could still picture it.
Have you seen them
outside
of this?
I don't know. I don't know their names.
Oh, so these aren't real students?
I don't know. Maybe not.
Oh God, this is wild.
Yeah, I mean, I had to have at least seen them once because your face doesn't just make up.
So if like Riley's whole class came in here, would you probably be able to recognize them?
Probably not.
Oh, weird.
Because I don't know. Yeah. Because like your brain can't just make up faces. Right. So I'm sure I've seen somebody that looks like them.
You could have walked past them in the hall at some point.
Could have.
Wow.
Movie. I don't know. Yeah. So like I had a dream like that, or there was one time when I was out of the ICU, I thought my dad was spending the night because he had spent a lot of the nights in the hospital room with me. And so this one's weird. I completely thought he was spending the night in like the chair behind my bed. But then there was a family that was waiting for another ICU room, and they just came and stayed in my room. And there was the mom, the dad, and their 2 kids, and sleeping on my floor of my hospital
Your
room.
space.
Yeah, and I remember
space.
like talking with my dad out loud and being like, I really want to like ask you questions about these people and why they're in my room, but I can't because they're
They're
right
not
there.
there.
They're not. No one's there. My dad wasn't there, and so I would like sometimes my dad would answer and like have a conversation with me, and other times he wouldn't. And so then I'm like questioning myself, and I'm like, is this a dream? Like, is this real? What is real? And
Yeah,
so then I would just be like, Dad, because I couldn't turn around to see the chair. And so I'd be like, why are you not, like, I was getting mad. Like, why are you not answering me? And so I woke up, because then I was also that night, oh my goodness, so many dreams. That same night, I was talking so much with my dad because I had also dreamed they were supposed to take out my feeding tube out of my nose. And I was really anxious about it. And I was like fighting a pretend nurse in my head about the feeding tube. And then when she had left, I was like talking crap with my dad. And none of this happened. My dad wasn't there. The nurse wasn't there. They didn't take my feeding tube out for another 2 days after that. Like,
did you have a roommate?
No.
No. Oh, good thing. Because
a good thing. They'd think I was crazy.
This lady is nuts.
Yeah. I was on the good stuff. Like, so it was really nuts.
Weird.
Yeah.
Wow.
So like as I've gotten back home from the hospital and everything, things are starting to like come back. And I'm like, oh, like remember this or remember that? And everyone's like, that one was a dream. That didn't happen. Like I was so worried about my sister's husband. Has a little brother. His name's Nick. And I had convinced myself in a dream that he had gotten into a car accident and died. And it was like 2 days, maybe even a day before my sister was supposed to fly out. Because she ended up coming to fly out, help me get back on my feet because that's her job. She's an occupational therapist. And I literally woke up that next morning and when my dad had gotten there and I was like, did you hear about Nick? He was like, no, what? And I was like, he just died. How did you not find out about that? And he's like, what are you talking about? I just talked to your sister. I'm like, no, I just talked to my sister. Like,
oh my goodness.
Nick died. Is Madison not coming out anymore? And so he like called my sister and was like, is Nick okay? And she's like, yeah, he's fine. Like, what's going on? He never got into a car accident. Like, I don't know.
So like you have all this trauma, like just because of the dream, like all that stress and everything.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So then we ended up like getting back to normal-ish as much as you can. And I've been having to go back to the hospitals to get like CT scans, x-rays, all of that. The first x-ray I had to get at that same St. Anthony's, I looked at Riley and I was like, I don't like this. I'm like having like PTSD. Like just the beeping sounds. Because I can like, if I sit down and it's quiet and I can think about it, I can hear that beeping sounds. Like from my ventilation, from my breathing tube, if I would cough too hard or like if I was gagging, it would make a certain noise and that is like ingrained in my brain. So if I really sit and think about it, I can hear
it's
the
like
hospital.
Internalized.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
So do you have to have like therapy with that stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm in therapy right now. Whenever there's something traumatic like that, like doctors will be like, you should really go at least for 6 months to a year. So I'm actually in therapy and I'm also on some anxiety meds for it just because like I wouldn't be able to sleep beforehand. So just to kind of like get me back to normal.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a lot on the brain.
Is that hard on you to figure like?
I think I kind of cope with it like with humor. Like
I could see that.
Yeah.
Like you laugh about it.
Yeah, but I definitely, it has worried my dad a lot because especially when I had just gotten home, I went crazy with looking up like what was going on with me and I would Google things and I was looking at videos on TikTok and watching intubations and my dad was like, this is not healthy.
Right.
But like for me, because I was gone for 2 weeks out of my life and I'm a control freak. And I have no idea what happened. Like watching the videos and researching it is what was making me feel better about not being there.
Right.
But yeah, like I was going down all these rabbit holes and freaking out. And I even talked to my dad and my grandma and Riley, and I was like, maybe I chose the wrong profession. Like thinking I should go back to school and be a nurse and do all of that. And like realistically, I don't like change, so it wouldn't really probably happen. But I was going through all of these rabbit holes of like, I'm not supposed to be teaching. I'm supposed to be a nurse. Like
like that
I
meant
was
something.
so
It had a
fixated.
deeper meaning, or
Yeah,
it was a sign.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, but I got so fixated on it. It's gotten better now, but I would find myself just like staring at the pictures or like the videos of me, which like my dad's not happy that we have the pictures. He wants to just erase it.
Oh,
But
sure.
for me, like I was so fixated on it because I am such a control freak that like I need to know. Like I would ask Riley and be like, well, what happened on this day? Like day number 4 or 5. He's like, nothing, you were asleep. Like nothing happened. Like they did this test, but then like we just kind of hung out in your room. And I'm like, that's not good enough for me. Like
Something happened.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
you didn't
something.
document.
Yeah.
You missed a
I need
you
to know
missed a
every
video.
minute. Exactly.
Yeah. Oh.
So it's been hard in terms of like not being a part of my life for 2 weeks. But I cope with it because I like to talk about myself. So I like to talk about my story. So anytime people like ask about it, I'm like, oh my gosh, let me tell you all about it.
Do you have 2 hours?
Yeah. Yeah, because it's a lot.
It is a lot. So how did Riley survive those 2 weeks without you? Did he talk about that?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I know if something happened to my wife, I mean, I'd struggle.
Yeah.
Like I don't even know like bank accounts and how to grocery shop and those kinds of things.
Yeah. So this has brought up a lot of struggles and controversy within the family.
Oh, okay.
Which I can see both sides. Riley's side of it was he was so worried about, we just bought a house in October.
Yes.
Thanks to you. And he was so worried about that aspect of, oh my gosh, like Katherine could die and like I could lose the house. So he was like, I need to figure out mortgage and because I was literally in a hospital.
Like you usually handle that?
No.
Oh, no.
No.
Okay.
It's him. But we split the cost.
Okay.
And he doesn't know my banking stuff. And so he had to do the mortgage by himself and he had to do groceries by himself and things like that. So he kind of really dug into work and kind of, I think, used it also as a distraction.
I could see that.
Because, I mean, I'm basically lying there lifeless, like, essentially. And I wouldn't want to sit there and stare at
So do you think if you switch spots, like you think you probably would have handled it the same way? Like you would have been at work more or no?
No. I'm not saying no,
Okay.
I'm not saying how Riley handled it was wrong. Everyone handles things in their own way. However, we have always said Riley's the logical one and I'm the emotional one.
Mm-hmm.
So I would not have thought about he was the one who was talking with HR and making sure I still had my job. And because I wasn't going to work. I missed like almost 2 months a month and a half of work. Like,
sure.
So he was doing the paperwork side of that. And he was in charge of the mortgage and he still had work himself and like making sure like just because all this was happening, like after the fact, we would still be staying afloat. Where I would not have thought about that. I would be like holding his cold hand the whole time. Like
more in the present.
I'd quit my job.
Yeah, more in the present.
Not actually, but
damn everything.
Yeah.
Right? Like, who cares if we lose the house?
Yeah, exactly.
That kind of
but then when he would get home, we would be kind of screwed.
Yeah.
So like I am very thankful that even though has caused stuff with family, just like seeing things differently in different perspectives, I'm still grateful that he did that. Like he had basketball games when I was in the ICU. He went to Kansas for a basketball game when I was in the ICU, which wasn't the right choice. I don't know. But we'll never know. I didn't even know he was gone. Yeah. So like, I don't know. I can see it from both sides. But I am very grateful that he did do that logical aspect because we do still have the house and we're not late on that. And I have my job still. And my principal,
a lot
like,
of back end stuff
yeah,
that was
like
taken care of.
he did all of the behind the curtains kind of stuff, which I would never have thought of if roles were reversed. So it's definitely been interesting how this has affected me, affected him, affected my family, affected his family.
The ripple effect.
It has. It's affected a lot of people, and it's honestly affected relationships, good and maybe not so good.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just in terms of like how certain people handle things and how others feel about it. There's just a lot of perspectives that go into it because it was such a big thing.
Sure.
And so kind of just sitting down with everyone and understanding those perspectives, it's been not a challenge, but it's been hard because in my head, it's all about me. And so having to sit down and be like, like, I understand, like, you had a hard time with it too, or you really struggled because of this, and that's interfering with blah, blah, blah. Like, so taking the lens off of me and also like saying like, well, how are you doing about it? Like, that was traumatic for you. Yeah. Like, like for my dad, for example, like he's lost a lot of family in his life. And so seeing his youngest child almost die, like, was very traumatic. Like, now he won't admit that it was traumatic. But to understand like, hey, like, I'm gonna take the lens off of me for a second. Like, how are you feeling? Or like, how's Riley feeling? How's my sister, who was the one that I called, feeling? Right. Like, my sister lives in Vegas, and I was the one that I called her 4 or 5 in the morning, said I'm coughing up blood, and she didn't hear about anything for the rest of the day.
Wow.
So like taking a second to step away from me, which I've always been, because I am the baby, like I've always gotten the attention, and then I've always kind of had that front row seat. So this has been very humbling for me, and has made me really like step back and appreciate things differently and appreciate those around me, because it was very humbling, and having to have others basically do everything for you, down to like things that help you survive and keep you clean. And like, it was very humbling. And just like being able to step back and acknowledge those who were there and those who really supported you through it all. It changes your perspective on everything.
So how do you think you're going to handle life differently?
I mean, that's a loaded question. I don't know. I just try and slow down a little bit. Like, I was very much the person that I would just kind of like chug along because it's life, and it's, well, I gotta do it because it is what it is. And I wouldn't like enjoy any of it. I just did it because I had to do it. And don't get me wrong, being a teacher is hard. But I don't know how you do it. It has made me like thankful to go to my job every day. Like,
you get to do this instead of have to do this kind of deal.
Like, it was very hard to just sit and be a couch potato for like 2 months. So even when I have really hard days, like, I'm still grateful to like go and see all the little kids, and they're all so excited to see me. And like, when I have all the extra doctorate appointments now, they're so sad when I have to have a sub. And so like, I guess I'm trying to not just live life because it's life. I'm trying to like slow down and be like, oh, like, it's so nice out. Like, let me walk the dog an extra lap, or like just enjoy it a little bit more.
Be more aware of all the blessings around you.
Yeah. Like, I feel like I was just taking everything for granted and like wasn't thankful for a lot of the stuff. I mean, obviously grateful for like the big things and whatever, but I was just living to live. Like, it was just a thing, and I was used to it, and there was nothing really exciting, but like really appreciating what I have and those around me, and understanding all of that stuff.
And letting them know that?
Yeah.
Getting better at that?
I don't know, maybe. I hope. I don't know. If not, I'm very thankful for you guys.
I wonder what it feels like if I was your sister, your dad, and like you came to me and I was like, this feels different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is this genuine, or is this just kind of in the moment?
Yeah.
Or, how do you, And just trying to figure out that from their perspective, what does that feel like?
Yeah, I'm feeling choked up right now. Yeah, like it was a lot.
It's a big deal.
Yeah. Oh, I haven't gotten choked up about this topic in a long time. Riley called it. Yeah, like seeing how they were changed by it all has been a lot. So.
Has it changed you spiritually?
I want to say yes, but I grew up Mormon as a kid. I'm not anymore. Haven't been since like middle school. And I just never went to church. I went with Riley and his family, but it was more like a holiday thing. And when I had woken up, I remember texting Riley and be like, we need to start going to church. Like, if like you were to ask me, like, I never want to say like, oh, I'm atheist or like anything like that. Cause like, what if, the day comes and I'm like, oh man, I regret saying that.
I want to hedge my bets here.
Yeah. So you don't ever like, so like I'm a person that I don't think you need church necessarily to feel grateful for the things and like to understand you need to be a good person and like to hope that there's more afterlife. Like if I died and then I was just in the ground, that would suck. Like, so there's a hope.
That's the end.
Yeah. So I hope there's more after.
Like there's an afterlife.
Yeah, right. I would hope. But I mean, I don't know, the Mormon church is a lot. And I was, as a young kid, was told if you don't see things, because as a kid, I was told there was like a certain lesson I remember of like having a brown paper bag and they're like, this bag is holding the most important thing. Like it allows you to get everything, blah, 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 whatever. Do you believe what I have is the most powerful thing? And I was like, no. Because I was like 7. I was like, I don't believe that. Like, whatever. And it was an iPhone in the bag. And they're like, it has the Bible on it. You can search things up. You can call people, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's so important to life. Like, and then he was like, let me ask you this. If you didn't, like, why didn't you believe it? And I was like, I didn't see it. He's like, so if you don't see God, do you not believe him? And I was like, okay. Hold on. So, I mean, there's always been like that in the back of my mind.
Oh, somebody was like testing you?
Yeah.
Oh,
like it was like my teacher. Oh. And he was like, so you don't believe in God? And I was like, yeah. So that's always like kind of sat in the back of my head of like, oh, if you don't believe it, you don't see it. Like you don't see it, like you don't believe it kind of a thing. And I don't want to say that's necessarily the case because like, I don't know. It just feels a little taboo to say stuff like that. But I do, like, I believe in being a good person, and I believe, like, there's got to be more. I don't believe in the Big Bang. Like, I think something had to have happened. Like, I don't know. I don't know exactly, but I hope that there's more. But with this, it has caused me, like, at first I was like, yes, let's go to church. And now, like, the reality of it, and this is going to sound terrible, like taking time out of the day to go to church, it's just not realistic to a lot of people just because laziness and oh, well, I got to clean and I got to do the chores. Oh, well, it's Sunday. Like, couldn't go to church. Like, so like going
So you become a little more laxed. Like, maybe that was a knee-jerk reaction or
well, not so much like, oh, I was like dramatic about it, whatever. But like, not necessarily like needing to go to an actual building, but just like I found myself praying more. Riley's gonna be shocked about that because
like praying to yourself.
Yeah, like, and I don't know how to do it right. Probably not doing it right if there is a right way.
I don't know if there's a right. Yeah, I mean.
But like I've just found myself because like Riley, when I was in the hospital, he ended up telling me like I would go down to because St. Anthony's is a Catholic facility, Catholic church, and he was like I would find myself going down to the church and like praying every day, like every time.
Is that unusual for him?
No, he grew up very Catholic, and has just kind of stopped going to actively going to the building, but still is Catholic, still prays, stuff like that. But we've never like prayed together or anything like that. But like hearing that he was like actively praying over me kind of hit home. Because I've never been like had anyone be like other than like, oh, I'm praying for you to get better. I've never
thought it was just words.
Yeah, I've never had like I mean, prayers for you. I hope you're feeling better. Yeah. Like, but like I've never had someone like actively be like, I was praying for you. Like, and I don't think he was like, oh, like bless the food, like, oh, and also Katherine. Like,
right.
Like I feel like he was so intentionally like this is going to be my future wife, like my
this is going to turn my life upside down.
Yeah, like
kind of deal.
And I said,
like, I'm the best thing for him.
I'm the best thing he's ever seen, night and day.
He better be on his
yeah,
knees.
no.
Yeah.
But I've never had someone like, I've never felt like someone was like genuinely like, I'm praying over you. And like, I mean, I've never believed it. And having him, we had like a come to Jesus talk. And he had like broken down in tears, and he was like, I was praying every day. Like, cause he kind of, Riley, he has like I'm too tough.
Like,
I'm a tough man. Like,
sure.
Yeah. I don't have emotions kind of thing. And this has.
Did it shock you?
It did.
It surprised you a little bit?
It did a little bit. Yeah. Because throughout the whole thing, he was like, we're going to go home and you're gonna be fine. You're great. Like, it's whatever. But then like when you really broke down to me, I was like, oh my God. Like, this man cares for me.
Did you have doubts?
No. No.
But it's reassuring.
And
it feels good.
Because he is that way. Yeah. So seeing him break down in tears, it's like not fun to see, but like it's nice to see him like that men can cry too. Like,
right.
And so
he was vulnerable.
He was very vulnerable. And so like having him be like vulnerable in that moment and crying and being like, I was praying for you as he's like actively crying. It just felt different than when like normal people are like, not that he's not normal, but like when everyone else is like, oh, I was praying for you. So
do you feel like you have more of those moments?
About praying?
This about just vulnerability.
And I do. Yeah. This has made me very vulnerable in a way of like, I'm more willing to ask for help. Like I wasn't the kind of person that would be like, I don't need help, blah, blah, blah. Like I've been to therapy before. I'd be like, I'm okay with asking for help. However, like with work, my work is amazing. And my principal was super supportive through all of this. And so was my first grade team. And they actually created a school-wide food train for Riley and I. And so they had asked me like, how long do you want food for? Like we'll do every few days. I was like, oh, maybe like a week or two. And they're like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, I'll be fine. That's good. Like, you don't even need to do that. Like, because I was worried people wouldn't sign up. And so
you're always calculating something in your head.
It's anxiety. And so I was like, yeah, like it's fine. Because then if like, a week or two and no one signs up, it's fine.
Like,
everyone forgot by now.
Feelings,
Fresh up. And so, like as the weeks went on, I had a meeting with my principal, just like a normal school meeting. And she was like, how are you doing? How's Riley? Like, I was like, oh, I'm good. She's like, no, like, how are you actually doing? Like, really wanted to know.
Let's be honest.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm fine. Like, I'm exhausted. Like, it's a lot coming back, but I'm doing good. And she was like, I know you're not one to ask for help, but like, I would really love to push the food trains for you. And I was like, I don't know. That feels a little weird. Like I'm back to school. I'm back to work full time. Like, Riley's working. Like, I don't want to be like begging people for food kind of thing.
Right.
And she was like, but when you go back to full time, like you're not going to want to cook. And I was like, yeah, okay, sure. Which thank God she did that because
she was right.
She was right. Like when I just like had food to put in the oven, it was so nice. Like not having to think about what to cook.
Sure. Yeah.
So like at first it definitely was awkward and being like, yeah, like they sent out the email again. We're going to extend the food train. I was like, oh goodness, that makes me sound like
were you embarrassed?
Like I'm begging for
okay, I can see that.
Yeah. And so it just felt a little scratchy. But like my school has been super great and super supportive. And like even now to this day, like, hey, like they'll come to my room. Hey, do you want to go get water? Do you need anything? Just like, I'll give you a few minute break. Like, what do you need? So
that's cool.
Yeah. And at first I was like, no, it's fine. But I've started like taking it. Because for me, it's like if you're going out of your way to ask about something or ask if they need something, and then if someone shuts you down, I'd be like, all right, fine. Like,
right.
Like, I'm not going to ask you again.
Right.
Kind of thing. So it's like,
so you're more aware of how they feel.
Yeah. Like, so it's like, because if I'm going to go out of my way and do something, like reach out and ask if I can do something for you, and then you're like, no, I don't need you. I don't need you.
Yeah.
Like, ouch. Okay. Like, fine.
That hurts.
Yeah. And so like allowing people to help and support even when it feels a little awkward, which I was not so good at beforehand. I was kind of trying to like, I would just tough it out. And even like when I shouldn't have just toughed it out.
Yeah.
So it's definitely changed me in that perspective as well. But yeah.
Is there anything that happened during this process that made you worse? I mean, like, it seems like you got all these positive things going.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, did anything negatively happen as far as like, you know, maybe I didn't like what do you think? What do you think?
I'm like looking at Riley, like, I don't. Is there?
Poor Riley.
Like, I don't know.
Okay.
I would hope to say no, but I'm sure there's something.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's perfect.
Yeah. I think because you are very strong. You're a very strong woman.
Yeah.
And I think the
Thank you.
vulnerability and I hope that you could see that as more of a strength than a weakness.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you thought before it was a weakness.
Yeah.
And I think it really is a strength, especially on the men's side. I've tried to work on being more vulnerable, and just sharing my feelings and things that I don't like to talk about.
Yeah.
So, what about the therapy thing? How do you feel about therapy? Were you like, oh, I'm on board with therapy, or like, I don't need therapy. I'm like, I'm cool.
Yeah.
I can
At
handle
first,
it.
I mean, at first I was very emotional when it came to like people asking me about it, just because it was traumatic. There was like a lot going on. And so at first I like jumped right on board, and I was like, yeah, like I've done it before. It was fine. Like it worked. It helped. Yada yada whatever. But as like I started to talk with the therapist, I was like, I feel like I don't need this. Like,
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I'm fine. I don't know. That sounds weird to say. Like I'm not fine. Like you asked.
So you're saying this, you're like, no, but I'm not.
Well, like you asked my family, and they're like, you need some help.
Maybe we should increase the sessions.
But for me, I feel like I've already grown so much from like, I don't know if that makes sense. I feel
like maybe the therapy needs to catch up with where you're at now.
No, like I feel like at first the therapy was like, oh, it's for the medical stuff. And now I'm just like, I feel like we're just gals talking. Like, why do I need to pay to talk to somebody?
Oh, I see.
I could just talk to a friend. Because most of the time we don't talk about the medical stuff. It's like, how was your day? And what's up?
Well, maybe I mean, but you said that's gone into everything in your life.
Yeah.
So, they need to check on everything, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. Yes.
So do you feel like, you have this new outlook on life?
I do. Yeah. It's changed a lot. It's made, like I said, it's made me a lot more grateful and a lot more open to other people's perspectives. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not perfect. I still have my moments, but I've noticed I also don't care about like fighting anymore.
Oh.
Like with Riley, for example, like there was we've been together for almost 6 years. Like we started in high school. We bicker like we're best friends, like we're siblings basically. That's a weird analogy, but we just like bicker over little dumb things. And they're never like why are we having the why are we bickering about it? And so there was one time kind of soon after I had gotten back from the hospital, and like I don't even remember what it was, but we were just bickering, and I like stopped us, and I was like, I almost died. Very well could have died. We're 23 years old now. Like, let's stop the petty stuff. We'll drink some water.
Let's take a break.
Come back to the conversation. And like he kind of agreed, and like since then, like we haven't, I mean, again, we're not perfect. Like
right. Everybody has their stuff.
Everyone has their little bickering moments. But like I think it has also changed us as a couple. Not only to like understand like we're in it for the long haul. Like it's not just like, oh, we've been together 6 years, like you're stuck. Like,
right.
Like we are with each other, and like we've seen each other at literally our worst and at our highest. And so I feel like it's also changed us and like how we handle situations and how we love each other. That sounds kind of cliche, but like I feel like we have gotten closer through all of this. And I feel like that's kind of happened with like everyone, as I've just have more appreciation for others and more appreciation for what I have. Like I'll look at Riley and I'll be like, we bought a house together. Like it's you and me. Like,
right.
Like I'll kind of just have these realizations and be like, that's
Do you
crazy.
talk about it more? Like
about
like just that appreciation and that gratitude, or is it just more like I'm driving to work and I was like, dang, you know what?
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
I think it's definitely more in my head than I would like it to be. Like I have definitely been walking the dog and like start crying, happy tears.
Sure.
But like just the realization of like I can breathe. And like the first time I walked the dog, because I would walk, Riley and I would walk 3 houses down with my oxygen tank, my cane, he had the dog,
Oh my
and then I was
gosh.
struggling to get back to the house. So the first time I was able to like really take the dog on a walk, I cried. I was listening to music and I completely broke down. And I was like, it's more in my head because it sounds kind of silly to like be like, hey, I really appreciate that the sky is so blue today. Because it sounds dumb, but it's those things.
Sure.
Where because when I woke up in the hospital, there was a blizzard and I had no idea. Like everyone got to experience everything and I was frozen in time for 2 weeks and it was really hard. And so for me, it kind of feels silly to be like, I'm so like, let me tell you how thankful I am about the blue sky. So it's definitely more in my head, but it happens multiple times a day. Like I'll have a hard day at work, but we go out to recess and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's windy and the wind on my face and it feels so nice. So
that is awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely, I wish I was more comfortable telling others, but I feel like it's a little silly. But I feel like,
really,
I
why?
feel like everyone needs to be more grateful for the small things. Like everyone's grateful for everything big and obviously I'm grateful for my family and you're grateful for the food and like the big things that everyone says, but like I feel like no one really stops and is like, I'm thankful for this shade of blue in the sky. Like,
right.
But I feel like that's what we need to be most thankful for. Like, we take everything for granted. And even the things that we do say we're thankful for, we honestly take those for granted. Like, it's kind of just words. Like, oh, yeah, I'm grateful for you. Okay, why?
Like, I'm grateful I woke up today.
Yeah.
But are you really?
But are you really? No.
Right.
No
Probably
one
not.
really is
Yeah.
unless you've gone through it.
Right.
Like, I would have never thought about breathing to be grateful for breathing. Like, oh yeah, I'm thankful for the lungs in my air. Are you though? Because until you've not had the lungs in your air, you don't know any different.
Right.
So I feel like that it's changed my perspective on the little things, I feel like. Like I love sitting down in the grass now and like rubbing my hands in the grass. Like, I don't know. It's the small things now that like has made me really change my perspective.
I totally appreciate that. And as you get older, like me, you know, there's times where I'll wake up at like 10 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and I'm at, like, I can't catch my breath. Like, so I have to like get up, walk downstairs, and I have like severe anxiety. Like for an hour, I'm like, this is it. I'm like, how am I going to tell Tiana? How am I going to tell the kids? I'm ready to go. Like, I'm ready. Like, I'm ready to end this life. Cause I was like, I can't catch my breath. Like, and I can't go to the doctor because it's the medical thing.
Exactly.
And like your mind
scary.
just races
and your
into
mind
like,
takes
it just
to the
spirals.
max. Yep.
Yes. And when I get through that, and it's a lot of self-talk because I don't want to wake up Tiana and have her worry and things like that. And you're just sitting there and your head's between your knees, and you're just like, how am I going to get through this? And I do start the prayer and everything else. And I think that's what gets me through it. But at the end of that episode is what I call it. You're so grateful.
Yeah.
Like I can take a full breath.
Yeah. Like so when I had first gotten home, all the doctors, first of all, were surprised I was leaving. Like had multiple doctors come out to me and be like, I'm surprised you're going home.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
But then they were all thinking I was going to be on so much medication. Like I had issues with my heart, obviously my lungs, like all kinds of things were going on. My doctor for my heart specifically thought I was going to be going home on 5 different medications. I only went home for strep medication because that's what I went septic on in the hospital. So
wow.
Yeah, so I only went home on 1 medication other than like anxiety meds, but with all of the different antibiotics that I was on, everything, and starting new anxiety meds, it really messes with your body and like your hormones. And I remember like the first or second night that I had started my anxiety meds, I had a panic attack, and because it makes your body shake. And I looked at Riley and I was he's never seen me have a full-blown panic attack, and it freaked him out.
They're scary.
Yeah, and because my legs were shaking, my arms were shaking, I was like hysterically crying because I thought I was dying. I just got home from the hospital.
Right.
And I'm freaking out, and he's like, "What do I do? What do you want me to do? Like, how do I fix you?"
So you're like, Riley, I'm just thinking like, we just got you home. I just went through this. It's like, don't start up again, please.
And in his head, he literally was like, "How do I fix you? Like, what do I do?" Like, he was thinking logically, like, "How do I fix you?" And I was thinking emotionally. I was like, "I'm dying." Like, so I was fine. It was just my meds kicking in, but it's a lot. It's in the moment, it's very scary. And I'm having to like not necessarily retrain, but retrust my body.
Right.
Like I have a sore throat right now, and I instantly was like, "Oh my God, am I going to go back to the hospital?"
Right.
Like, any little thing, I'm like, is this going to be it? Like, is this the one that's going to take me out?
Right.
But it's just, I've got to retrust my body, and it's going to take a while, but.
Do they cover that in therapy?
I mean, not the therapy I was at. Like, we were literally talking.
we were gossiping.
We were literally talking about like school.
Let's do a Google search and see what to talk about. You know?
Yeah. But I mean, like, therapy is great for like anything. Like, you can talk about anything. I just probably didn't bring it up, but yeah, I'm sure you can talk about it.
There was something that you brought up, and I was like, I want to ask her about that. But so, do you think is health in like at the forefront of your mind now? Like, are you trying to take care of yourself a little bit more? Can you exercise more? Are you eating better?
This sounds terrible, but no.
No? Okay.
No, I'm kind of just, I mean, I lived a healthy life beforehand. Like, I've never had health issues. I eat healthy now. We went to the gym all the time. They want me to go back to the gym, and that just sounds terrible to me.
Really? Okay, no desire
like,
to go to the gym.
I mean, obviously, like, I've got a membership. I got to make use of it. But
right.
they were like, you need to start jogging here soon. Like, start pushing your lungs. And my stepmom is a runner, and she's like, let's go together. And I was like, respectfully, that sounds terrible. I do not want to. I didn't run beforehand.
Oh, you didn't?
No,
you were not a runner. Okay.
No, there's two different kinds of fitness. There's like fit to be fit, and then there's fit to look good.
Right.
I was the fit to look good. I didn't care to run a marathon, but they were like, you need to start pushing your heart and your lungs. Like, you need to be running. Yeah. And Riley's excited because he runs for basketball, and he runs every time he works out.
Right.
He was like, let's go on a run. And I was like, God, no. No, who do you think I am?
Does not sound good at all.
No. Like, even like lifting weights, like, it's just because my body I lost a lot of weight and a lot of muscle when I was in the hospital. Mm-hmm. I lost a good 15 pounds.
Oh, you don't have 15 pounds to lose.
No. So I was pretty skinny there for a minute. Everyone was like, you get a burger. And I was like, I don't have the appetite to eat a burger. I was fed through a straw, basically.
Right. Yeah.
So I've luckily gotten the weight back, but like the muscle's not back. Oh. And so they're like, let's go lift some weights. And I'm like, my little noodle arms can't handle that right now. So
let's start with the 1 pound.
Yeah.
Dumbbells, you know, it's like.
So, I mean, actively, I'm not doing anything different. I'm not going to lie.
Okay. Do you want to? I mean, do you see the importance of it? Or
I mean,
like,
I definitely.
I could probably handle another one of these episodes.
God, no. That sounds terrible. I can't even. Everyone's like, you need to go have a baby. Like, have a baby. Like, we just bought the house. It's got an extra room. Where's the baby? And I'm like,
sure.
Hold on. You got to be back in the hospital for a baby. I don't even want to look at the hospital right now. So my baby timeline's gotten pushed back.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah. So push back. So I don't want any health scares again. So like I'm taking care of myself. Okay. It's just I'm not going out of my way.
Okay.
I'm living my normal life again. Like this was just a freak accident.
Anything.
No.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Like that sounds terrible. That I'm not like I need to be on a strict diet and blah blah blah. But like just going back to normal life. That's what that's what I strive for is normalcy.
Okay. So in your head, you have like all these things that's normal, and you just try to get back to
normal.
that.
I don't know what normal is, but
or pre
this
pneumonia.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, I still have pneumonia. This is going into month 3. I still have pneumonia.
Oh wow. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So I just got my last CT scan was about a week ago, which is actually my 5th CT scan that I've gotten, which is a lot. And it showed that I still have pneumonia on my top upper lobe of my right side. And I have dilations in my lung. I don't know what that means exactly, but basically they're like bigger spots in my lungs, and that's kind of what is holding on to my pneumonia. And as time progresses, if we continue to see like I'm getting sick, it could be because the dilations. And if they don't get better, I can basically get lung infections a lot easier. So from now on, I got to do my flu shot. I've got to have a pneumonia shot every 5 years, just because this was so severe. And I'm still on medication for it. This is month 2, going on month 3 of medication for the strep and the pneumonia. So I mean, like I look better and I look like I'm healthy, but because it was so severe, like I'm not back to normal.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I still find myself out of breath. I still just cough.
It's still not motivation enough to be like, I gotta get to the gym. Okay.
I'm like, let me wait till the liquid's gone.
Pain, I guess.
I do.
Like,
yeah, because everyone was like, you waited way too long. Like, why did you not go
and I'm
sooner?
doing it again.
Yeah.
It's like
they're like, you waited way too long.
I have to get back to normal.
Yeah, but I'm like, I need to be back to normal before I start doing it. Let's wait for that normalcy.
So this is the new normal, maybe.
It is. So I have scarring around my lungs. And so when I take a really deep breath, it hurts a little bit. And they just said it's going to be like that because of the scarring. So yeah.
Like scar tissue?
Yep, I've got scar tissue. I don't know if it's in or around or maybe both. But yeah, so I've lost a little bit of lung capacity. Nothing major, nothing that they're concerned about. But it'll just kind of always be like that. So like on my CT scans, he showed me the scarring and he was like, that's going to always be there. So like if your doctor doesn't know about it for some whatever odd reason, like that's going to always show up. So it's stuck with me forever.
Wow.
Got a couple really great scars to show it. Like, great conversation starters.
Yeah, that's cool. That little scar on your neck's pretty cool. That's like a battle
this
wound.
One. Yeah, from far away it looks kind of like just like a pimple, so it's a little annoying. So like, but when you're close up, I'm like, I make sure to move my hair so you can see it.
Like,
yeah.
See how strong I am?
I've got that one. I've got where I had a chest tube in from the ICU. Which they've just barely missed my tattoo, so it was okay.
Oh, you have a tattoo there?
I do. Yep. I've got a compass on my ribs.
That's an interesting spot.
On my ribs?
Yeah.
I've got both my ribs tattooed.
Oh.
I've got a couple tattoos.
Okay.
But they just barely missed it, so it's good. And then I've got one on my arm where I had a PICC line for a couple of weeks that basically just allowed for more medication to go straight to my heart.
Wow.
So got a couple battle wounds.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're here.
Me too.
Yeah.
And that sounds weird. Just whenever people are like, "I'm glad you're with us," I'm like, "Me too." And that sounds so odd. It feels weird to say because everyone's usually like, "Thank you." But I'm also like, "Me too." Yeah. I am like, I am thankful to be here.
But you mean it.
I do.
Yeah, like deep meaning behind it. It's,
yeah.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Like being in the hospital. Yes, I was in the hospital for 2 weeks, but I was only awake for 3, off and on throughout, but then really awake for 3. Oh my gosh, people that are in the hospital for long periods of time and like awake for long periods, I was going crazy.
Especially kids. You know, you like go to a children's hospital and you're
like it's a lot mentally. Like that in and of itself is very exhausting. So like when I say I'm grateful to be here and I'm great, like I mean it. Like the last day I was there, they were like, "Oh, like I think you'll be able to go home." And so like in my head, I was like, "Yeah, I'm going home."
Yeah.
But then like as the day went on, I was like, oh my gosh, like that means I'm back in my own, like I'm in charge of myself again. And like
that made you nervous?
I had a panic attack. Like they had, before I left, I had a panic attack. They had to give me medication. So I was asleep on the car ride home because I was freaking out. But like, it just shows like I'm so much more thankful. And like, yes, it was really scary, but also like I survived that and I've gone through those struggles. So everyone's like, "Oh, I've got great scar cream." And like, you can really get rid of that easy. And I've straight up told them, I'm like, "No, I don't want it."
Wow.
They're like, "Well, why not?" And I'm like, that's my story. Like that's what I went through. Yeah. Like I went through something crazy that no one else, like I was airlifted. Like you can't say that. like that's a pretty big flex, I feel like. Not for the right reasons, but like, but I don't know. I feel like it has changed me so much. Like I'm a big believer in like you grow through what you go through, and I feel like it's not something to be taken away from you. So whether that be good or bad things, I think that's a major thing is you grow through what you're going through.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people say like the flowers don't grow without rain. Like it's
Yeah.
You
You
don't.
got to have the bad with the good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you become who you are based on what you went through in life.
Right.
So.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Hmm. Well, that's your story now.
That's my story.
Wow.
It's not the end of it.
That's right.
Still got a lot of life to go.
What's in store? Like, did you go home or have you thought about it like a big goal? Like, you know what? I really want to accomplish this now. Has that set in yet? Or you're just like, I'm just trying to take a deep breath.
I think I'm just trying to get back to normal.
Yeah. That's your Everest right now? Like,
yeah. That's mostly like I could say, oh, I'm back to normal, but realistically, I'm not. Mentally, I'm not back to normal. There's a lot going on in life. We're starting our backyard. So there's lots going on where I'm like, I feel like, yes, it's normal, but there's a lot going on.
Right.
So right now it's to feel normal as much as possible and like enjoy those things. Eventually I would like to start my master's for education. But
why is that important?
Because multiple reasons. Obviously one one big one is with teaching, as the higher education you get, the higher you get paid. But also like I don't think that once you become a teacher, like that's it. Like, oh, I know everything, like I'm done kind of a thing. But also just like it gives you opportunities. It gives you different pathways. Not that I'm like trying to change a pathway right now, but it just gives opportunities. And
like maybe be a professor in the future, or
I don't know, big kids scare me.
Big kids.
Like I'm at a K-8 school right now, and like the middle schoolers will walk by and I look down.
Because what grade do you teach?
I teach first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And like some of these eighth graders are bigger than me.
Yeah.
A lot of them are bigger than me. And so I like look down. Like I talk with the teachers. I'm like, I don't know how you do it. And they're like, I don't know how you do your job.
Yeah.
I'm like,
just perspective.
Yeah. So I think I'm going to for sure stay with littles.
Okay.
But there's lots of opportunities with getting a master's to stay with littles.
How's that even possible? You're like, what do you master in like origami or like sack lunches? I don't know.
No, there's so many different things that you can get masters in through education. Like you can, so my degree right now is early childhood education.
Okay, yes.
So I'm birth through third grade. Okay. So I can actually only teach to third grade, but I can teach before you're even in school. Like if you're at a Montessori or something like that, like I can do that as well.
Okay.
But I could go and I could extend it to all of elementary school, or I could even extend it to do K-8, or I could do high school. I could do special education. I can do administration if I ever wanted to be a principal.
Right.
So I could do curriculum, like differentiation. So like education, it's a whole nother thing. It's so broad. There's so many pathways through it. And I don't know exactly what pathway I would want to take quite yet, but I just know that that's somewhere in my near future is to get a master's degree for that.
Okay.
But yeah.
Do you feel like you do some volunteering in like the hospitals or help people that went through kind of the same stuff that you went through?
Yeah, I mean, that kind of goes back to like, I was like, oh, I should have been a nurse. Like literally went through this whole ordeal of like, I'm going to start looking at schools. Change, life change. Like, but realistically, I like my job. I love it. And I don't think I would change it. Riley and I have definitely talked about, what's funny actually is right before Christmas when all of this happened, because my sister works in a hospital, and I was like, oh, like she was working on Christmas and I felt really bad. And I was like, next year we should start a tradition where we go and we bake cookies or we do something and we go and drop them off at like different parts of the hospital. Like,
oh, that's cool.
ICU, labor, like whatever. Like, so the people that are at work have a little bit of a pick me up, because working in the hospital is hard.
I bet.
I mean, I don't know personal, like firsthand, but like being as a patient, like it's hard. And being there every day and seeing people's hardest days of their lives, like I'm sure it's got to take a toll on them.
Some people don't get out.
Yeah. A lot, especially a lot. And so literally maybe a week before this happened, I was like, we need to start that tradition. And then this all happened and like we were a part of it. So, I mean, I definitely want to start, at least be like helping or a little more giving for those like first responders, like even like police officers. Like my dad was a police officer for 25 years. Like
Mm-hmm.
there were multiple times where we couldn't start Christmas until 8, 9 o'clock at night when he got home. Like, so giving the firefighters, the police officers, like a batch of cookies, like something for a little pick me up, like just a little pick me up. So
Yeah.
maybe not necessarily like me go in and like volunteer at the hospital, but just kind of give more recognition to those people.
Sure.
I feel like those, like everyone's like, oh, like we love first responders, but I feel like that's about all they do is like those, they're a lot of
Just
talk.
words.
Yeah. And I feel like being able to like go and put the smile on their face and be like, I get you're having a rough day, like, but here's something that can hopefully help pick up. So
Right.
I don't know. I think that'd be fun for Riley and I to kind of start
Cool.
as a tradition and
Cool.
bring into our family, and
I love
as we
that.
start to have kids, kind of
Sure.
show and understand, because we're not first responders in that sense of like we're not missing out, like we have summers off, things like that. So like
Right.
they won't get the same experience I got as a kid with my dad being a police officer, and understanding and being more appreciative and more thankful for those jobs. Especially nowadays, like with everyone talking bad on everyone, like
Right.
they just won't get that same opportunity. And so I feel like if once we start to have kids, like implementing that young and like
Appreciation.
and respect and all of that kind of stuff, like that's what I look forward to. So
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, I think that's a wrap.
sounds good.
Cool.